in your disbandment letter, you said that should not be construed as an instruction to disband immediately. So the immediacy attached to something else, the speed with which you took your decision, not the disestablishment that you are calling for. Did I understand you correctly?
Not exactly. Maybe it's a question of wanting to say it in my own words.
No, maybe, let me try with my own words, because my understanding becomes important to how I approach the issue. You recall your letter states, I therefore direct that the political killings task team be disestablished immediately. That's the phraseology used. And in your engagement with the chair yesterday, you said, immediately does not speak to the disestablishment. You remember the engagement with the chair about immediately being an adverb and then searching for the verb?
Yes.
Yes. So I just wanted to test that you didn't say it's the disestablishment itself that must be taken immediately.
Yes.
Your thinking at the time was that that would be subject to a particular process.
Yes.
That would roll out over time.
Yes.
Am I correct?
You are correct.
One thing I don't think we got to yesterday was an understanding of what process did you anticipate to roll out until the point of disestablishment. So if possibly you could address yourself to that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I didn't necessarily work out a detailed process beyond saying what I indicated in the directive. Once the National Commission looking in the form of the preliminary report, which would be handed over to us and then, or to me, and then I would look at it as we move towards the UNESCO. So I didn't necessarily work out any detail at the time when I wrote the letter beyond those kinds of engagements. But I had in mind engagements going forward.
I understood. Thank you for that, Minister. Then this brings me to your annexure SM1, page 99. You have the page open.
Yes.
That page has at the top a paragraph with a bullet point. I want us to skip that, the next, and go to the third.
Yes.
It should be highlighted in yellow, I think.
I see.
Yes. And that paragraph reads, I quote, the minister further indicated that there must be consideration and review of certain capabilities, such as the political killings task team, which are primarily about addressing serious crimes. He stated that SAPS should guard against creating structures, units based on specific category, whilst these duplicate the existing capabilities. In this regard, you gave some examples, e.g., taxi killings, political killing, all about matters, close parenthesis, close quote. You see that? Correct. Now, the process, let me ask this different question. This minute of your meeting states that prior to the disestablishment of these task teams, there must be a reconsideration and review of certain capabilities of these task teams. And you make an example with the political killings task team. Do I understand that correctly? Correct. When was that review undertaken, as per the minute? The review of the capabilities of the political killings task team.
That was in reference to what had already happened in one part, but it also was in reference to the need for ongoing assessments just after we had, because this was almost at the end of the year, this meeting.
Yes, 1st of November.
We had, I think, internally completed the process of those reviews, but it was merely referring to that, and of course the need for ongoing, which would include current or any other current task team that would still be there, including the National Political Killings Task Team, because although we had adopted the structure and all of that, but there were the National Killings Political Task Team was still there, and therefore it was in reference to the current structural situation.
So if I understand you correctly, much as this minute suggests that certain steps must still be taken in the future, because it states there must be a review of capabilities such as the political killings task team. I shouldn't understand that to mean the review must be undertaken. I should accept that as meaning that the review that has already been done.
Yes, and any other need for ongoing reviews, taking it into consideration that the National Political Killings Task Team was still there and there must be an ongoing review. It was all encompassing.
Would you accept that, and I hear what your explanation, but would you accept that on a simple reading of what is written, it doesn't lend one at the understanding that you are suggesting now? So we're not talking about reviews previously done. We're talking about reviews which must be done on the wording as it stands now. And I do take your explanation, but would you fault me for understanding what's written here in your minute as referencing a point in time in the future?
Yes, I would say not necessarily just exclusively in future, but because in the context of discussions at that time in the meeting, this would have meant that we are on an ongoing assessments of our structural review. We had not necessarily covered all the ground in the structural setup of SAPS. And therefore, broadly speaking, we were still in the process, but the structure had been basically adopted internally. But that didn't mean that that is the end of the need to assess, to review, because there were task teams that were still there that could be reviewed. So it was work in progress, in other words.
Yes. The other,
Mr. Before
yes.
you go to the other, Minister, good morning. I'm not sure I understand your explanation, but let's look at this. It might help me. At this point, given your construction now, this explanation you are giving, that there had been reconsideration and review previously, and it must therefore carry on. That's what you were saying. At which point was there, before this meeting, at which point was there reconsideration and a review of the capabilities of the PKTT? If you say this was a reference to historical and into the future, at which point in the past had there been a reconsideration and a review of the capabilities of the PKTT?
This was not necessarily exclusively referring to PKTT, because capability within SAPS wouldn't be confined to one team. We were talking in the context, one, of cabinet priorities for the 7th administration, which among the three is developing and consolidating state capacity. So and then we then talk about, then we had just completed the structure ourselves with that in mind. And it was then referring to what we had considered in that context of building capacity of the state as we reviewed the whole structure. But it was also referring to the assessments that had taken place, because in essence, the 2024 assessment in the form of the Marai report and other reports before,
Yes.
they were assessing capacity of the state with regard to SAPS to fight crime successfully.
Yes. Minister, you are very specific in this paragraph, in your suggestion. In this paragraph, you say, you specify, it's clear that you're referring to other, you are including other task teams, but you specify the political killings task team, you say such as.
Yes.
And from that, I do understand that there are, you're contemplating task teams in general, but you specify PKTT. My question is limited to that which you specify. And it is simply this. At which point in the past before this meeting had there been a reconsideration and a review of the capabilities of the PKTT? My question is specific. PKTT, at which point had there been a reconsideration and review of their capabilities?
No, there had not been
Yes.
any specified assessment of PKTT as part of a capacity. Instead, capacity that was reviewed, that was assessed, would be murder and robbery, would be all of that. And it was always juxtaposed with the political killings task team, that you have developed a capacity or a capability in the form of specialized units. And then you have the political killings task team.
Okay.
And then you avoid that duplication.
All right. Can I then go on to my conclusion, therefore? With that explanation, that admission that there had not been a review of the PKTT in particular, here you could only have been speaking about a future review, therefore. If it must follow. If there had not been a past review of the capabilities of the PKTT, which you accept, which you say now, this sentence here that Ms. Silo was taking you through must be a reference to a future review of the PK, because it has not happened before. There can only be from the 1st of November, there must be a review.
Well, in the context of reviewing capacity of SAPS to fight crime.
No,
which-
Minister, sorry, I don't mean to be rude, I have to stop you. My question is specific. You have said now, in the last sentence, you have said there hadn't been a review, as at the 1st of November, there hadn't been a review of the PKTT's capabilities and a reconsideration. You've just said that. And what I'm putting to you is, therefore, it must follow that in that proposal that you make, or in that statement that you make in that first line, you are speaking about the future. From the 1st of November, there must be a review. It has to be, Minister.
I agree with that.
Thank you. Ms. Silo, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Based on that concession, Minister, therefore, the same answer must extend to the requirement for a reconsideration. That too would be in the future. I'm still at page 99, still on the first line. There are two things that should be done, a reconsideration and a review. I'm simply asking, based on your response to Commissioner Baloi's question, must I accept that a reconsideration itself of specifically the capabilities of the political killings task team, firstly, had not been undertaken, and therefore you, because this minute reflects you as the speaker. You were suggesting that it be undertaken. There be a reconsideration. Once again, that is in the future. I'm correct to understand it that way.
You are correct.
Okay.
I must just add one thing, that it says such as,
Indeed.
not necessarily one,
Po-
yes.
Point fairly made, I take it.
Yes.
Yes, it says such as the political killing
Yes.
star team. And on that score, we had only one political killing star team. When we reference political killing star team, because even the way it's written, it's a name, it's only one task team that comes to mind. You did not infer at the time every political killing task team. You were actually using that particular task team as the example. Am I correct?
Correct.
Thank you. So this is the 1st of November. Did that reconsideration then remember we're talking about the review. Now I'm on the point of reconsideration. Did that reconsideration take place between the 1st of November and the 31st of December? The 1st of November being the date of that minute, the 31st of December being the date of your letter. Did such a reconsideration take place? And if so, what were the outcomes thereof?
Not that I'm aware of.
Or it didn't?
Not that I'm
Okay.
aware of.
So, staying with that paragraph, perhaps before we go there, in your statement at page 56, if I may call that file up, the minister's statement. And I would like to refer you to paragraph 56 of your statement. Page 56. Time to have. In page 56, Minister, apologies for the confusion. And at page 56, under the heading Reasons for the December 31st, 2024 Directive. So we've established that the reconsideration and review of capabilities of the political task team did not inform your decision of the 31st of December, and we know because it hadn't taken place. So we go to your statement at page 56 to locate the reasons as you put them forth. And on my reading of your statement, you advance 5 different reasons. They span page 56 to page 58. And I would like to invite us to perhaps consider each reason in turn to assist the commission in having a better understanding of why the political killings task team was disestablished, or you, Minister, instructed that it be disestablished on that particular day. Your first is an invocation of a 2019 work study. And I'm going to read the second sentence of that paragraph. You state, the continuation of a temporary task team outside of SAP's organizational structure had become untenable both administratively and constitutionally. Full stop. You see where I am?
Yes, I see.
Before we deal with that work study,
Sorry, Mr. Law, where are you reading?
paragraph 167, the second part of
167.
167,
Oh,
yes.
sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Before we deal with the work study itself, once again, I think I would benefit from your guidance. You say the continuation of a temporary task team outside of SAP's organizational structure. What does that phrase mean? What do you mean by the phrase outside of SAP's organizational structure?
It means what is understood inside SAPs or internal in SAPs, what is attached as a meaning of a team. Task teams are always located outside the organogram per se, the adopted organogram. and that has been the case since 2019, if not even before, that if you establish a task team, you establish it not necessarily inside the organogram, because it is for a particular purpose at that time as it arises, and it ends as the need for that becomes obvious.
Okay. And you said that continuation has become untenable, both administratively and constitutionally. We'll come back to the administratively. Could you explain what you mean by the conclusion that the continuation has become untenable constitutionally? How do you invite the commissioners to understand that phrase? Are you invoking any provision of the Constitution, or
No,
I'm trying to understand?
No, it was just in broad reference to our constitutional mandate that SAPS must, as a mandate, their mandate is to prevent, it is to investigate, it is to combat. So it was just in broad reference. That if you have, in other words, if you continue with structures that are not part of your organogram, you are less likely to fulfill your mandate.
So, in trying to test my understanding, or maybe before I do, I might benefit from a further explanation by you. So we have addressed the notion of the continuation being constitutionally untenable. I hear your answer. But then you say both administratively and constitutionally. What in this context would administratively refer to? What would be administratively untenable?
It was making reference to capacity of SAPS at any level, in this instance, national level in the first place, to manage a proliferation of task teams, because the more you have them, the more it becomes untenable or difficult to manage and control on the side of the National Commissioner.
So at this juncture, did you envisage a situation, or I'll put it differently, were you arguing for the complete disestablishment or abolishment of the notion of task teams within SAPS? Can I interpret it that way, or have I gone too far?
You are correct that by end of the year, I had gone deeper in terms of assessing the effectiveness, but from the perspective of sustainability. When you have internal units and you sharpen them, you strengthen them, as opposed to task teams, but not necessarily that you would completely abolish the need, because they are dictated to by the situation on the ground.
Yes.
Task teams.
I was going to move to another aspect of that paragraph, but
Before you do that, so that I understand the minister's position, Minister, are you saying in that sentence, are you saying the existence of a temporary task team is not constitutionally permissible? Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily. As I say, I'm saying I was referring to Constitution. I was referring to the Constitution in broad terms in relation to what I understand to be the mandate of SAPS, that they are less likely with the dependence on task teams than when they depend on units that they cultivate, that they develop and hone over a period. That's what it was referring to, but not to say there is anything unconstitutional about task teams, because that you can't do away with, because it is dictated to by the need on the ground all the time. But just establish, assess, and then time frame all the time.
Yes. So you did not make the decision that to disband the PKTT on the basis that it is constitutionally untenable to have that task team, the
Not-
PKTT. That's not one of your reasons for disbanding it.
Definitely, it is not one of the reasons.
Okay, so if we read this paragraph, if I read this sentence to be one of your reasons for disbanding the PKTT, then I am wrong. I misunderstood what this sentence means. Is that what you're saying?
My understanding of that sentence is that it generally sends a message to subs to discourage teams, task teams, keeping of task teams, because it makes it less possible for subs to reach out or to get their mandates fulfilled. Not to say it's unconstitutional, teams are unconstitutional and so on, but if subs more and more depends on task teams which are temporal, firstly, you have a problem of administering them, carrying them on your shoulders, and then it makes you less likely to fulfill your mandate.
Yes. The problem with your explanation, Minister, in that paragraph is you're specific. You're speaking about the NPKTT. You speak about the NPKTT, and then you say the continuation of a temporary structure. So in the first sentence, you say, first, SAPS has made clear throughout 24 that NPKTT was an interim structure whose mandate fell squarely within the permanent remit of the murder and robbery unit created by the 2019 work study. So we know from this first part that the second part of that paragraph, where you say the continuation of a temporary task team, you are referring to the NPKTT.
Yes.
So my question remains, am I incorrectly understanding what you say in this last part of the paragraph? Do I misunderstand when I read it, which I did, to mean this is one of your reasons that the NPKTT that you give for disbanding the PKTT, it is that it is constitutionally untenable to have the PKTT, which you describe as outside of the structure, the organizational structure, that to have it continue to exist, this temporary team, the PKTT, is constitutionally untenable.
In the context of its impact to subs to reach out their mandates.
Okay. With that answer, then it must mean even the taxi violence task team is constitutionally untenable to continue to have it, given your reasoning about the PKTT.
That is why the taxi task team was put under specialized units inside subs organogram.
Okay, but you didn't dissolve it. You didn't disband it.
No, what happened with it? It was put under murder and robbery, which is under serious and violent crimes, to permanently reside within the structure, which makes it better for subs to fulfill their mandates.
Yes.
So, which is different from a standalone structure like PKTT.
Well, can I maybe make my point this way? The PKTT, as at the 31st of December, was not the only task team of the SAPS. You express in paragraph 167 that it's constitutionally untenable to have a task team exist outside of the organizational structure. That's what you say. The principle is it's constitutionally untenable to have task teams outside of the structure. Maybe you're correct, maybe you're not. But the question is, you dissolve only one task team when you have that concern about the constitutionality of task team. It is only one task team that you dissolve. You're happy to live with the unconstitutional existence, if ever there's such a concept. You are happy to countenance the continued constitutionality problem you have about the existence of other task teams, but just not the PKTT. Please explain in a way that makes that your decision to make sense.
Now, historically, the National Political Killings Task Team is the only team that had been associated with being inside or outside the structure all the time from 2019. And as indicated before, it was always expressly indicated by SAPS that it would need to be integrated, it would need to be absorbed. And therefore, that's why it sort of features higher than any other team in the conversation. Hence, even here in these paragraphs, it seems to be the only, but the principle is not necessarily confined to it alone. It applies across, but the specific reference is this one because in the conversation that had developed over time, that was the one that was in reference almost all the time from 2019.
Sorry.
More than any other.
This is my last engagement, I think, for now on this. Have you just said that the PKTT is the only task team that the SAPs have considered to be outside of the structure, of the organizational structure?
No, I'm saying the PKTT is the only task team that had consistently featured in the conversation parallel to structures, simply because of one reason. Its tasks were identified by SAPS as requiring absorption to a specialized unit inside. And it's almost because the other teams that were originally identified, they were identified as a problem, as a burden, as being untenable. That's why they were then dissolved, if I could talk that language, and integrated into like murder and robbery, and under murder and robbery and under serious and violent crimes. They were doing integration so that these task team could be managed better in a sustainable way, so that you could be certain about the instruments you are using to fight crime.
Okay. Can I just try one last time so that I understand what your answer is to my question?
Yes.
Are you saying to us the PKTT, and it's a yes or no answer, I either misunderstand or understood you correctly. I'm going to reframe my question. Are you saying the PKTT is the only task team that the SAPs that you are referring to considered to be outside of the organizational structure? It's either yes, that's what you're saying, or no, that's not what you're saying.
For my clarity, I hear you very well, but if you could be kind to me to repeat your question.
Okay, that's all right. You spoke in a way that made me understand you to be saying, according to the SAPS discussions,
Yes.
the PKTT was the only task team that was considered to be outside of the organizational structure. You spoke in a way that I understood you to be saying that. So what I'm asking is that what you were saying, that understanding of mine that I've just projected back to you?
Yes.
And that's why I say
understand.
it's a yes or no answer. Either I understood you correctly to be saying only the PKTT was considered to be outside of the structure, or no, I misheard or misunderstood you.
You misunderstood me.
Yes.
And the reason for that is that National Political Killings Task Team is the only structure, or the only not structure team that was targeted, if I could use that language,
I see.
for, over a long time for integration. It's as if even the specialized units were established such that you would absorb, because
Can I stop you there, Minister?
Okay, thank you.
What I wanted to establish with you a few questions back
Okay,
was you have other task teams in the
Yes.
subs.
yes,
Can we agree, if you are correct in this sentence where you say the continuation of a temporary task team outside of the organizational structure is untenable both administratively and constitutionally? If you're correct with that statement, it holds for all task teams.
yes,
It must be.
That's correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to establish. So it's not just unique to the PKTT.
Yes,
It
that's
also
correct.
applies to the mining task team, to any other task team that the subs has.
That is correct, with a proviso that you wouldn't, when there's a need to establish a task team, you would flinch from doing so. You would establish and then disestablish.
Okay,
But yeah,
thank you. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Commissioner. If I may just follow up on that based on your response. Because at some point I thought I understood, but now I'm not so sure of myself. If the statement is the continuation of a temporary task team outside of SAP's organizational structure had become untenable both administratively and constitutionally, that would mean reference to the existing task teams. Their continuation existence has become untenable administratively and constitutionally. Am I correct thus far?
broadly speaking, yes.
So you say, of course, you do attach a caveat there that it does not preclude the establishment in the future of task teams as and when needed to, in response to specific challenges.
Yes,
So those that would be established in the future would not have the difficulty of being administratively and constitutionally untenable because they're outside the substructure. I'm trying to understand. Granted, we are talking about existing ones. If their existence and operation outside SAP's organizational structure is what renders them constitutionally and administratively untenable, that surely must be a challenge that would afflict any other future task team because they would forever remain outside SAP's organizational structures. Why would it be fine for the future task teams and not for the existing?
I did indicate at the beginning that, or at some point, that generally, when you look at mandates of SAPs and so on, you realize that it's important that whatever gets done in a sustainable way, cost-effective way, and so on, and with necessary intended impact. Therefore, generally discouraging, that statement is meant to generally discourage, in other words, to caution all of us that we're not going to make SAPs an organization of temporal task teams in general. But it doesn't mean that even when it is necessary to establish a task team, you would not establish one, but consider that it is cumbersome.
Yes.
Consider that it diminishes your chances to obtain or to reach out for your mandates.
Thank you for that, Minister. And another thing, once again, in response to Commissioner Baloyi, with reference in particular to the PKTT, I understood you to say, and my understanding might be incorrect, and please correct me, that the PKTT, the first time around you said was always identified for absorption. The second time you referenced this issue, you said was targeted for integration. Did I hear you? Did I understand you correctly?
Correct.
Does your letter of the 31st of December achieve any of those objectives, whether it's absorption or integration?
It was meant to.
In retrospect, do you think it does?
It does.
How?
In the sense that even if you used disbandment, but in practice, you wanted integration. If the directive was not to say dismiss all those individual members, it was to say start processes, or let's engage in processes in line with what has always been intended with regard to the National Political Killing Trust Team.
As I understand things, you did indicate that task teams are created for a specific challenge.
Yes.
To address specific issues.
Yes.
And normally it's for, I won't say specific time because it's very difficult to
Yes.
determine time, but it's for a limited period, it's for a period.
Yes.
So if my understanding is correct, then the disestablishment of a task team that has delivered on its mandate can never have the effect of dismissing police officers, can it? Because it's established from within the ranks of the police members. So its disestablishment will not result in any police officer losing their job.
Definitely. Correct.
So similarly here, the disestablishment contemplated would not result in the PKTT members losing their jobs.
Correct.
So I'm struggling with the notion of disestablish. So, put it differently. So we first break it apart, it being the team, to absorb the team into the substructures. Am I understanding it correctly?
You're understanding it correctly.
Okay.
Are you moving from this paragraph?
I'm still on the paragraph.
Okay.
Now that I have a better understanding of what perhaps informed your decision, I read that paragraph. I'm still at 167. I read that paragraph. Okay, let me do it differently. You invoke, as I understand that paragraph, the 2019 work study to draw the conclusion that you do in the second part of that paragraph. Am I correct?
You're correct.
Let's find that work study on my reading of your statement that you should be your annexure SM3, and SM3 should start at page 115, same file. And in annexure SM3, this document is titled Establishment of Specialized Capacities, Anti-Gang Units, Murder and Robbery Units, as well as Taxi Violence and Cold Case Investigation Functions within the South African Police Service. Rather a mouthful, but I had to say it all for purposes of the record. That is the document, correct?
Yes, correct.
Thank you. Same page 117 under item 2, the heading is purpose. I read the following. The purpose of this investigation is to determine the feasibility of establishing specialized capacities, as well as to give clarity on the structural placement and functional, as well as enabling post-structure requirements within the detective service, would the establishment be feasible? Okay, there might be challenges there in the construction of the sentence, but the purpose is clearly stated there, and we can fill in the gaps where we think some words are missing to try and understand and have a full appreciation of the purpose. So the purpose of this investigation, of which this report is a result, was to determine the feasibility of establishing specialized capacities within detective service, in summary.
Yes,
Is that yours?
yes.
Do you know what was the outcome of this study? That on that particular aspect, the feasibility of establishing specialized capacities within the detective service?
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, it's just that I don't see the date, but it sounds like the 2018 establishment. It talks about, it should be 2018 work study.
Apologies, Minister, I lost you.
I'm saying I don't see the date.
Oh, the date of this, if you go to page 155 of that SM3,
Yes,
it bears the signature of AK, it's Sectional Commander Operational Organizational Design Detection, Colonel AK Murray. It's got a date of 2019-06-19.
oh, yes, yes,
And I take that person to be the author.
correct,
Yes, 2019, yes.
yes. So what was the question is,
No, the question is
what was the outcome?
the outcome of the, yes.
The outcome of this work study at that time was that it was indeed undertaken, that study. And it's 2018. And it was then signed or accepted and adopted in 2019 by the then commissioner, Commissioner Sithole. And he signed it off into implementation. That's why in September that year, 2019, a letter of implementation was then accepted after the work study had been taken and discussed and adopted. So this study was undertaken.
Okay. You referenced the implementation letter, and throughout your statement, you suggest that they be read together. That implementation letter is what you attach as SM4 at page 179. Is that correct?
To some 4, yes, yes.
Is that the implementation letter you just referenced?
That would be the one.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll keep our finger there, we'll come back. But getting back to SM3, the
Okay.
report,
Yes.
I would like to refer you to page 159.
One
159. Oh, sorry, 154.
Oh,
My apologies.
okay. I have,
159 is actually the other annexure.
It's
I
empty,
do
yes.
apologize for the confusion. 154.
I have it.
Oh, thank you. At 154 is under heading recommendations, is a list of recommendations by Colonel Murray arising from the investigation he conducted. Is that how I understand the document as well?
Yes.
We don't have to read in detail all the recommendations. There are 8 of them listed. Having considered the recommendations by Colonel Murray and the content of the report, I struggle to understand how it can lend anyone to the conclusion that the continuation of temporary task team outside of SAP's organizational structure is both administratively and constitutionally untenable. I struggle, so I request you to perhaps point me to something, be it in the recommendations or the body of the report itself, regard being held to the purpose that we looked at previously, how we arrived at the conclusion you seem to have drawn as set out in paragraph 167.
Now, these recommendations
Yes,
seem to be talking to establishment of these structures at the provincial level, which is a lesser point. The main point about this and the concept of specialized units was to the effect that pull all the proliferated at that time, prior to the study, teams, and then put them together, and they came up with the concept of specialized units, which would sort of integrate all the smaller ones that had been identified. And you will see that it goes on to 2024, when they do another assessment and they find out that there are still a number of proliferate, or there are still many task teams that are still hanging around. They have not been integrated into specialized units. So the whole concept of specialized units was meant to sharpen subs, make subs sharpened around certain identified crimes, as it were, as they were identified at that time, so that there is more capacity to deal with them.
yes. I see at page 158, a few pages forward, just above the signature of the National Commissioner, General K.J. Sithole, who approved this report.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the handwriting, and I don't mean to cast aspersions, becomes difficult to read, but I'm going to try to. But I think that the part I'm interested in, at least I can read. General Sithole at the time says a national pilot project process must be established with different, and then I struggle, and resources.
Sub-projects.
Oh, sub-projects and resources. And resources must be allocated from the national budget with clear account numbers. Do you see? That's General Sithole.
I see that.
So General Sithole said he approves this with the comment that a national pilot project process must be established. What do you understand by those words?
Well, I understood him to have approved what had been submitted to him in terms of a proposal for specialized units. And then it talks about a pilot project process, meaning that they were not in a position to unleash these specialized units all over. They wanted to projectize it, pilot projectize it. And he was wanting to approve that so that they could maybe for a couple of months see how it would work.
So the implementation of this entire report, on my reading
Yes.
of General Sithole's comments or basis for approval, is that a pilot project process must be initiated.
Yes, they said so in 2019 when they adopted the work study to say it will be implemented in a phased approach.
Okay. Perhaps before I move further, because I wanted to then bring in the other document, Commissioner Balo, you had wanted to find out if I was moving from, I think, the work study.
Sorry, I have to try and remember. If you go back to that paragraph in your statement, Minister, that paragraph 167, And I think you did explain, Ms. Silo asked you the question you explained. I'm just not sure that I understood. So I'm going to ask you to repeat it, please. The way you speak about this task team being administratively untenable, can you just explain again, what did you mean when you say it's administratively untenable?
It meant that subs with a proliferation of smaller, if I could just insert that, task teams, it would stretch them or it would overstretch them. There was a concept when they decide, in fact, even in terms of effectiveness, that is what landed them in a concept of specialized units so that they would absorb all these into bigger, into more specialized for control and management, which is the duty of the National Commissioner. And I think they were quite in line with the qualitative meaning of manage and control, because they had in mind, if I looked at it, effectiveness and efficiency. And therefore, here, it had become untenable. They wanted to make it possible and much more easier for them to administer.
Okay. To the extent that in this paragraph, you mention the PKTT in particular.
Yes.
In what way had the PKTT become administratively untenable to have the PKTT? And the question is direct to the PKTT because our discussion is about your reasons for disbanding the PKTT. So
Yes.
While you speak of broadly
Yes.
task teams, let's come to the PKTT because that's one of the factors you took into account. In what way
Yes.
had it become administratively untenable to have the PKTT exist for another day beyond the 31st of December?
When I wrote the letter, I was already in possession of what I refer to as allegations from a number of categories of people, including civil society, including and so on, but also including people from inside subs. Now, when I wrote the memo, that is the directive, I had that in mind that possibly certain things are setting in subs via PKTT in terms of control and administration. Now, that category of complainants, if I could refer them, I could refer to them as such, that I was advised by the Commission to seek advice from my lawyers on, indicated to me clearly that there are certain things that we are losing in terms of control and management. If you look at the complaints that I had received by the time I wrote this letter. So it refers to that, but it also refers to alleged abuses of human rights by those who had written to us in various categories as I referred them to. So this is what this refers to that.
Yes. Now, all right, it's a separate discussion, those complaints. So I'm not asking that we get into them.
Yes.
We'll have a discussion separately.
Yes.
These complaints, to the extent that that's what you're referring to here, when
Yes.
you talk about administrative untenability of the continued existence of the PKTT, you did not discuss them with the National Commissioner, those complaints.
We discussed some of them.
No, the ones that you've listed. You've given us a list and
Yes.
you're referencing them now, including those names that you gave yesterday. You did not say to the National Commissioner, I've got these complaints. I want your response to them.
The ones that are here, I
Yes.
did. The ones that are in the envelope, I didn't.
Okay, all right. Where I'm going with it is you get to a point where you make a decision that those complaints are evidence of administrative untenability, to whatever we mean with that concept. You say these complaints, they show that there's a problem administratively, but you don't verify those complaints with your management. And yet, on the basis of those complaints, you conclude the continued existence of the PKTT is administratively untenable. You get them, and I'm happy to confine myself to the list in that envelope as one of the examples, that you get that list. You don't verify with your management, certainly not with the National Commissioner. You don't verify that list, so you don't know whether it's true or not. People are making allegations. You don't know whether what they've told you, whatever it is that they tell you, you don't know how the SAPS reacts to that, how your National Commissioner reacts to that, but you conclude that those make it untenable, administratively untenable for the PKTT to continue to exist. How is that a proper thought process that leads you to this far-reaching conclusion? It's administratively untenable to continue to exist.
Again, the ones that are here, I discussed with the National Commissioner. The ones that are in the envelope, I didn't. And the reason why I didn't, it was solely because of the agreement between me and these people when they met me in person, indicating confidentiality, but more than that, indicating safety concerns.
Yes, we'll get to that.
Yes.
I ask you not to enter
Yes.
into the merits because it's
Yes.
a topic on its own.
Yes.
I'm simply putting to you the difficulty that you get complaints, you
Yes.
don't ask your National Commissioner, is this true, is it not true? Tell me what you've done about it, but you don't do that, but you get to the conclusion to use that as a reason, as one of your reasons to dissolve the PKTT, because you say it has become administratively untenable.
I did discuss with the National Commissioner the concerns raised by Mary de Haas. I did discuss with the National Commissioner concerns that were raised by Patricia Mashale.
The ones that Patricia Mashale raises in her Facebook,
We did discuss with the National Commissioner.
those Facebook extracts.
We did discuss that there are a number of things that, not necessarily one by one, but we did discuss that she is putting things to me, and
Yes.
is she putting things to you?
Yes.
He said, yes,
Yes.
I am receiving this. And then we had a small discussion
And
about
from
that.
that discussion, where the National Commissioner says, yes, I'm aware of this.
Yes.
Because she has raised them, you decide that those complaints render the PKTT's continued existence administratively untenable.
Partially, and then the other part is the ones that I didn't discuss with them, but I got to know about them, but I didn't discuss with them. But
Yes.
combining them, I'm trying to say, it's not like I didn't discuss any of the concerns or anything with the National Commissioner. I did,
Yes.
partially, but the others I didn't discuss.
Okay, all right. Perhaps to summarize, is your position from this discussion, are you saying where you refer as a reason for dissolving the PKTT, where you say it had become administratively untenable, you're saying that because of the Mashale complaints, because of Ms. de Haas's complaints, because of those 8 people in that envelope? You say all of that taken together is what led you to the conclusion that the continued existence of the PKTT for another day is administratively untenable.
Correct.
Okay.
But you remember that there are other reasons
Yes,
These
you-
are not, yeah.
Yes, you
in that
will
context.
discuss your other reasons. I'm
Yes.
just wanting to make sure
Yes,
that
correct.
administratively, where you refer to administratively,
Correct.
those three are the factors you took into
Correct.
account to that conclusion. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ed.
Thank you, Commissioner. Earlier then, you indicated that either the outcomes of this investigation that Colonel Murray undertook, that investigation, as we have the report at SM3, if I understood you correctly, you say, no, you referenced an implementation letter.
Yes,
Please
correct.
explain to me the relevance of that implementation letter vis-a-vis this investigation report. What's the link between the two?
The link is that the implementation letter was saying that initiative that of the work study has now been completed. It must now be implemented.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for that, Minister. And not the pilot project that General Sitole had approved, as we saw at page.
Yes. The
So
pi-
sorry,
yes.
if I may say, so the implementation letter, in your understanding, directs the implementation of the outcomes and recommendations of that report in their entirety, and no longer the pilot project process that National Commissioner Sitole at the time approved, as per his comments at page 158. I'm trying to understand which aspect is being approved by, which is being implemented. Is it the pilot project process in terms of General Sitole 158, or is it the report in its entirety?
What was to be implemented was the
Yes.
report in its entirety.
Okay.
But when the National Commissioner signs, he then decides that it would take the form of a pilot at that particular time.
Okay. Now, the implementation letter starts at page 179 of that same file, that's SM4. Have you located it, Minister?
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
yes, correct.
Is that the implementation letter you reference?
Yes. Correct.
Just for the record, it's a 2-page document. It's dated at page 180, 14 November 2019. And it seemed to have been authored by Major General, Head Organizational Development, N.L. Mzima. I'm reading you, I'm correct?
Yes,
Anna?
yes.
Now, my reading of this document is that it addresses the human resource issues within SAPS. Admittedly, in the context of the establishment of specialized capacities. So it confines itself purely to that. And secondly, I wouldn't expect it to enforce the report if it is issued by Major General Head Organizational Development. I would expect the one to implement the report or direct that it be implemented in its entirety would be the head of SAPS, and at the time would be General Sitole.
Yes, correct.
So if we then accept that Major General Head Organizational Development, Zima is not the head of SAPS, if we try and interpret what her function is, the title might assist head organizational development. In my thinking, I think she's responsible for human resources within SAPS. I may be wrong. It just, I'm trying to interpret what I see here with a little bit of guesswork. It's somebody responsible for human resources in SAPS. And even if I'm wrong, one thing I am certain about, he or she is not the national commissioner. At least on that we are settled.
Yes, correct.
So the HR leader within SAPS then issues this letter. And if we go back to 179, references the work study investigation that we've just had regard to SM3, fully dated, and the like, and says was approved by Lieutenant Colonel K.J. Sitole on 26 June 2019. And just we don't have to go back there. Going back to the report, I see that General Sitole appended his signature on the same date. It does not speak now our implementation letter to the directive by General Sitole that a national pilot project process be established, a pilot project. But perhaps that's how the General Nzima at the time understood it. But to go further, at paragraph 4 of the same implementation letter, it reads, for your information and implementation with specific reference to the recommendations of the report as well as comment by Lieutenant General Dimpani. That comment is to be found in the report again at page 158, and unfortunately is in manuscript, so I'll try and see if I can read it and understand. At 158, above the signature of Lieutenant General Dimpani, the following is noted. Members already in the unit must be accommodated in the PEFE. PE, thank you. For the WC gang unit, other critical basic resources were provided during the establishment of the unit. Funding to be provided to accommodate operatives. The costs, thank you. Yes. Thank you, Commissioner. And as a fourth point, for other AGU as offered in the report, a phased-in approach be followed with regard to the other units. And that's what I understand General Nzima to be referring to when he or she refers us back to Lieutenant General Dimpani's comments. And once again, I understand Lieutenant General Dimpani's comments to be confined to matters affecting members. Once again, it's HR issues. How accommodation of those members, what is it, in the PE, the Western Cape gang. So the comments are confined to the members themselves, not the functions of the units, no, not the mandates of the units, no. So basically how members are to be treated. At 5, now I'm at SM4. At 5, General Nzima notes, the provincial head's organizational development and strategic management is kindly requested to complete SAPS 495 documents for the placement and registration of the separate entities mentioned in the attached work study report. The completed SAPS 49 documents can be sent to marais@saps.gov.za for further handling regarding the PERSAL registration. The report was presented at the Board of Commissioners and presented to the SSSBC. Two things come out for me here. The reference to PERSAL registration once more confirms that is about HR issues. This is the system, as I understand, that records employees of government. Is my understanding correct? PERSAL, the PERSAL.
Yes.
It's confined to. That's the purpose of
Thank
a PERSAL system in the government, in the public sector.
Correct.
Okay. So the fact that there are requirements to complete SAPS 495 documents to be handed in regarding PERSAL registration, it's human resources.
Yes.
Okay. Then it says the report was presented to the Board of Commissioners and presented to SSSBC. I had to do a bit of guesswork here, but I think the BC is Bargaining Council. I just did not remember the first three S's, what they stand for. But it sounds like it was referred to the Bargaining Council. Would you know what that triple SBC stands for?
It stands for, you're correct, for the Bargaining Council.
Okay. Thank you, Minister. And we know what a bargaining council, the purpose of a bargaining council, we all know. We don't need to detain ourselves. Safety and Security Sectoral Bargaining Council. Thank you. Then over leaflet 180, item 6. Job evaluations in support of the levels of the command structure should be completed as soon as possible. And lastly, at 8, it is important to note that units that are established will be evaluated for the correct determination of the post structures, as the current structural approval is for an enabling establishment, and it continues. And that is the last point on that letter. My difficulty with your suggestion that report, that letter, constitutes an implementation letter that brought into full force all the findings in the 2019 work study. To the extent that's what you are implying, I have a difficulty, because this letter I interpret to be speaking to practical human resource realignment that would be required and processes that would have to be followed. What is your comment to that?
My comment, just in a package, in a way, to make things easier. Firstly,
Yes.
the work study was a comprehensive kind of a document.
Yes.
Even indicating, because you are establishing specialized units, then it included the ranking, it included qualifications of people who would be required in each specialized unit, and so on. Now, that's the human resource part. So they were quite detailed in doing it. So they completed the work study. They then write and discuss and adopt the implementation letter, which Commissioner Stolle agrees on and he signs, and then he says pilot it. Now, this letter by Mzima, which commissioners are referring to, is now written in essence to provinces to say we're now implementing. And that's why it's short and so on. And it comes in November. The work study had been adopted in September 2019. So this one is further implementation at a provincial level. Now, Timbane comes in from the finance side to say money is being made available, but these are the conditions and so on. And then that's So all these components come in as a phase is entered into after September to actually implement on the ground. That's why they make reference to PE, to Western Cape, and so on, but they are stating what would obtain in the final implementation on the ground.
Yes. I think I'm clarified with, about your position. I just want them to summarize, to test that I'm not misrepresenting your views. Once again, we are back at 167, because all this, this entire exercise was to try and help me understand the import of paragraph 167 and the reason that you advance. So I'm going to test it thus. So there was an investigation, and your understanding is that there was a directive that it be implemented in terms of SM4, which is what you call the implementation letter. And the effect of that was that automatically task teams would be operating outside the SAP's organizational structure and therefore would be impermissible. Is that a fair, is that a correct understanding on my part, or have I lost it completely?
Not completely, with a proviso that should a need arise in a province
Yes.
or elsewhere, a task team can be or will be, it will be permissible to establish one for that particular purpose, but this is an overall effort
Yes.
to integrating things in line with the concept of specialized units.
Thank you, Minister. Commissioners, I want to leave this paragraph, this specific reason. Commissioner Baloy?
You're still going to be discussing this work study?
I want to
you're
leave this
done?
work study. I want to move to the next. So if there are questions on this particular one.
Yeah, maybe let me then ask
Yes.
that question. Minister, Ms. Silo referred you to the recommendations at 154, Mr. Murray's recommendations. And then you have the approval of the National Commissioner, who says there must be a national pilot project. And then you have General Dimpane's comment there, which suggests what should be done. And the implementation letter speaks about the pilot being Western Cape, the anti-gang unit, and then it says in that paragraph 8 of that implementation letter, it says in the second sentence, third line, the first units to be evaluated to determine the criteria as well as ideal post-establishment will be anti-gang units in the Western Cape and Eastern Cape, as the units have been functioning already in the approval date, on the approval date of the report. We've established in your discussion with Ms. Silo that this seems to have related largely to personnel staffing issues. Yesterday in your testimony, you said this work study dissolved the PKTT with effect. I asked you the question and you answered quite firmly that yes, the 2019 work study dissolved the PKTT. And I want, apart from the fact that this work study, nowhere does it refer to dissolving on the date of this work study. It doesn't say anywhere that the PKTT is dissolved. But I want to put a difficulty to you that to the extent that it is a pilot project that is being approved by the commissioner says there must be a national pilot project. And then General Nzima speaks about the Western Cape as being the first one to be evaluated. Surely you must accept that they were not dissolving the PKTT, because there is specific reference to, we will start in the Western Cape. and posts will become available. We will do evaluations as posts become available. On a reading of these documents, there is no way that justifies a narrative or a conclusion or an understanding that this work study on its terms as it is in 2019 dissolved the PKTT.
You would recall that I went further to say they then realized that whereas it would have meant dissolution of the PKTT, in practice, because of the phased approach of building specialized units, they realized that they were not ready to dissolve the PKTT in practice. But in theory, that is what they meant. That's why the extension was for another 6 months.
So this work study, and that's what I want to establish with you. You spoke very firmly. In 2019, this work study dissolved the PKTT. What I'm putting to you is in this work study and the following approvals from the National Commissioner and the implementation letter, there is no way that they speak of disbanding the PKTT as at the date of the work study. The PKTT, yes, I'm simply putting that.
Yes.
Yes. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Minister, since your appointment in July 2024 until 31st of December 2024, did you get the opportunity to have Mr. Murray, Colonel Murray, presenting his work studies to you, both the 2019 and the 2024?
No.
No. So it is you who's interpreting the two documents. You're doing that on your own. He did not give you a briefing on those two documents.
Yes.
I'm going to put to you, Minister, that you are misinterpreting what Colonel Murray said in both his work studies. And you are incorrectly using those work studies to justify your decision to disband the PKTT. Because nowhere in any of those work studies did Colonel Murray say the PKTT must be disbanded. What is your answer?
My answer is that in the conceptualization of specialized units, it was expressly said that the proliferation or the existence of a number of task teams is not ideal. In other words, is not an ideal situation within SAPS. Let's establish specialized units. And when they established specialized units right from 2019, right in 2024, even in their assessments, they then established one of those units at a level called serious and violent crimes. It is in the structure from 2019, especially in 2020. I showed you the structure. And in that, or under that, serious and violent crimes, you have what they call the section. The section is called murder and robbery. And under that murder and robbery, as mandates thereof, they put sub-units. One of the sub-units that they put there is political killings. And of course, police killings, which we identified clearly yesterday. So it is expressed, not interpreted. It is expressed in black and white throughout 2019 and 2024. It's written down. And I did indicate that I had a chat with former Commissioner Stoll on the matters who indicated similar views. when we had a chat on these matters.
So if PKTT is a unit within the murder and robbery unit, it's a structure within, how does that square up with its disbandment? Because surely then all that means is that it will exist, but it will form part of the murder and robbery unit. So it will be a team within the murder and robbery unit. How does that square up with its disbandment?
It square ups in the sense that it will cease to exist in the form that it is existing now. You would take the model, you would take some of the personnel, you would take some of the experience into the new specialized unit. But it tells you that they can coexist. You can't have murder and robbery. And then you have on your right-hand side, you have PKTT. Mind you, in the new setup, when we come in, we discover, if I could use that word, that there are 4 provinces that are a problem in the whole country. It's not one where PKTT is based in, which is KZN. Your problem in terms of the views of the new administration is that you are preventing investment in the country. They say South Africa is ugly because of a high rate of murders, specific. And people don't feel, they are not made to feel safe. Now, you can then take that to mean in KZN. You mean in the main, you mean in the whole country, but in the main, in the 4 provinces. Then what it means is that PKTT needs to be part now of the newly established, which is futuristic, which is not temporal, which is sustainable and budgeted for. You need to put it in the structure that is now has been processed all the time. That's where these 2 things fit in. They can't coexist. That's number 1. And you are looking at sustainability. You are removing the temporal nature, but you are not firing people. You are not. At some point, I said to myself, maybe I shouldn't have used the word disband. I should have used integration or absorption. But that was with retrospect, because maybe it would have been understood better than what is happening, but that's exactly what it meant.
Yes, sir. I'm going to suggest to you that that does not square up with the thrust of your evidence, which is that the PKTT is set up by the IMC, the Interministerial Committee, and therefore it can only be disbanded by a minister or by that committee. Now, if you have studies that only go to a national commissioner and his subordinates, and they adopt the recommendations in those studies, the suggestion, if that's your suggestion, that the adoption of those recommendations can override an IMC decision that there must exist a PKTT, that does not make sense to me. Because if IMC says there must be a PKTT because the president has said so, and it must continue to exist, what is the relevance of a study that is approved by a national commissioner and his subordinates? Because on your version, the minister establishes the PKTT and only the minister can disband it.
I did yesterday indicate, and I'm still indicating, that the work study, the National Political Killings Task Team was meant to exist for 6 months. It is clearly indicated and written down. Hence, the assessment in December to say, do we do away with it or it continues to exist? They decide. That is the IMC. It must continue to exist based on the submissions and all of that, I suppose, of the steering committee. Then in January, they then say, okay, it must exist, but for the next 6 months, not permanent. Not permanent. They say another 6 months. Then it's extended and funded. And then after 6 months, they now say the extension must now take a year. Because if we assess the establishment of specialized units, especially murder and robbery, which would absorb PKTT, it's not yet that time. Then they extend it. That is why another assessment comes 2021, 2022. It's because these things were parallel. You assess, you
Minister, can we ask? Can we
correct there.
Your understanding is correct, but it's just needs to be qualified with one thing,
Please,
that there would be phases. They even said anti-gang unit is at that time the only one that exists in the Western Cape, and therefore it must be implemented say immediately, because it was in existence. They realized that we're talking about something that is already there,
Yes.
and therefore roll it out, operationalize it. But there are still informative stages And so let's extend PKTT and continue. So that was exactly how they looked at it.
And when you were, yesterday morning, when you were still putting your own version across to the commissioners, from your page 11, paragraph 35, you actually quote from SM3, and SM3 being this very Murray report we are discussing. And I understood you to do so to demonstrate that political killings are the same as all other killings, and as of the date of the report, they now resort under murder and robbery unit. Did I understand you correctly? Okay, I'll try again. I understood, if you have regard to page 11, from your paragraph 35, no, 34, you speak of General Sitole approving the work study, and then you speak to the murder and robbery unit's mandate, including serial murders, police killings, political murders, murders of elderly persons, and attacks on farms and smallholding. I'm reading from your paragraph 34.
That's correct.
And I think in your oral testimony in support of what you have at paragraph 35 now, which is a quotation from the work study itself, your explanation was, seeing as political killings result in killings, and that the murder and robbery unit has now assumed the mandate to deal with those crimes. That put paid to any justification for the existence of the political killings task team. You said a killing is a killing, if I understood. Murder is murder. Did I understand you correctly?
You understood me correctly.
Okay. And the quotation you provided from 5.4.2 of the report is set out there. And it appears at page 126 of SM3. In fact, what you didn't reflect in your paragraph was the correct number, which is 5.4.2.1. The main heading at 5.4.2 at page 126, SM3. Thank you. The main heading reads at 5.4.2, mandate, murder and robbery. You see where I'm reading?
Yes, I see.
And then below what we have quoted at 112, at page 12, comes out of 5.4.2.1. And you did, I think it was in response to Commissioner Kumalo's question, specifically point out that political murders and attempted murders are part of murder and robbery.
Yes.
It was in that context I say that you were saying
Yes.
a killing is a killing. Now, based on the responses that you've provided this morning to the various questions, would it be logical of all to accept that in the country, for as long as there is a killing, that automatically results under murder and robbery unit? Should we so conclude?
Correct.
Correct. And it doesn't need a task team to be established. It's a killing. We know where the mandate resides.
That's correct, except when, according to all of us, or National Commissioner realizes that there is something exceptional or remarkable in a particular area for a particular reason, there would then be creation or establishment of a task team for that particular period or something that is happening there, flare up and so on. But
Yes, I mean-
generally,
Yes,
all matters would fall
yes.
under this.
Unless the national commissioner, you said, and all of us, that including us in the room, who falls under the rubric of
Inside.
all of us.
In SAPS,
In SAPS?
Yes.
In SAPS, okay. So if it's in SAPS and you have made reference to national commissioner, then it's unless the national commissioner thinks otherwise and finds a need to establish a task team. So SAPS, that police service structure, okay. Sorry, Minister, you nod. I forgot that the microphone doesn't record a nod or a shake of the head. So,
yes, yes,
If you agree
yes,
with me, thank
yes,
you.
agreed.
Also,
Correct.
also, Minister, please just leave your microphones on, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the work study, the implementation plan prohibits establishment, and I use it in inverts, of task teams unless the national commissioner has good reason to establish a task team where killings occur. It's a very inelegant kind of summary, but I'm trying to understand that. Are you saying anything? Are you saying that or anything close to that?
Yes, I'm saying something close to that. There would be a discussion to say that there is a bubble or there is something unusual happening in a particular area, and it requires this kind of remedy.
A discussion between who? Who's discussing in respect of that bubble? Where is that discussion held?
What we have regular meetings, or there are regular meetings at least once a week between the minister and the national commissioner, but there are also other meetings that get organized, not necessarily falling within what would be an adopted schedule, but there are also meetings which I had said would be quarterly of UNESCO, that is ministry and top management. Those are the meetings that I'm referring to where things would be discussed on a regular basis.
But you said the national commissioner will decide. So perhaps just to test, the establishment or the decision to establish or not to establish a task team, that's the sole preserve of the national commissioner. It's for the national commissioner to decide that.
The national commissioner has power to establish within his constitutionally allocated mandate to do so, much as the provincial one has
Yes.
also that kind of mandate.
Okay. So, as you call it, a constitutional power, a constitutional mandate, and it's not surprising, it's that constitutional mandate that will override the effect of the Murray report that says no more task teams. But because the national commissioner retains this constitutional power, he can still establish.
Yes, because that report or outcomes of the report of the work study do not, those outcomes do not necessarily override the constitutional mandate and do not even exclude possibility that there would be this kind of reaction by management of police and even ministry or combined.
Yes.
When a situation so demands.
Yes. And therefore, the establishment of a task team by the national commissioner in those circumstances will not draw us back to the crisis you had on the 31st of December with the political killings task team, in that it was operating outside the SAPS organizational structure, and that had become both administratively and constitutionally untenable. At least we will not have that situation.
No.
Okay. So there's a bundle next to you. It's marked exhibit bundle.
Mr. There's one of two
Oh,
and two of two.
Indeed.
Which one?
Indeed. Apologies for the confusion. Two of two. Two of two. Sorry, before you leave the minister. Minister, I hope you haven't closed our Murray report at SM3 at page 126. That remains open. Thank you. So we know from the Murray report that the mandate of murder and robbery, as it reads, and I'm reading from the document, including taxi violence. So all killings, political, I don't know what other murders are there. I don't want to say normal murders. There is no such notion. Attempted murder, killings arising from taxi violence, all that now sits within murder and robbery unit. And that was the line of march from the day of approval of this report.
Yes.
I've called for the exhibit file. If you could go to exhibit CJC 55.13, it's quite a mouthful. And at page 371. She'll help find the right flag for you. (371) is an information note. If we go further to page 373 and 374, those are the signature pages, with National Commissioner appending his signature at 374 and approving this. There's this document from 9 December 2024 to the 28th of February 2025, correct? You see where I'm reading?
Correct.
Now, if I invite you to go back to 371, the heading of this document is called an information note, and I think we have seen a few of those. It's a request for funding, Eastern Cape report on taxi violence and extortion-related matters. I'm reading the top of the document. It is numbered and with headings, and under item 1, purpose, it reads, the purpose of this document is to present information to the reader regarding the tasking by the Minister of Police on murder-related taxi violence and extortion in East London, Butterworth. End of quote. Do you see that?
I see that, correct.
So I understand from a reading of that clause, that paragraph, that the Minister of Police, and I accept that, that's yourself, Minister.
Correct.
You called for and tasked, and I'll use that term guardedly, I'll put it in inverts. I'm not suggesting that you may, you have, or I accept that you have the power to task the National Commissioner to establish a task team, but I'm taking it from the document. But you tasked the National Commissioner to establish a task team to deal with murder-related taxi violence and extortion in East London and Butterworth. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you so tasked him.
That's correct.
Why didn't you trust the murder and robbery unit, which in terms of page 126, stipulates that that includes taxi violence? Why didn't you instruct that it be dealt by that unit? Because we know that was the line of march from 2019. It
falls within what I explained yesterday. What it's correctly written there. Asked the National Commissioner, who in turn tasked Major General Zulu. Major General Zulu is in charge of a number of combat units within SAPS. It's not task teams. It's not the units in the form of taxi violence or serious, and she's in charge of combat units like task force, like National Intervention Unit, TRT, and so on. So the kind of situation that arose there, we discussed it with National Commissioner. They were going to go there to reinforce via combat capacity, reinforce the murder and robbery with their taxi subunit in the Eastern Cape, because it had elements that required an extra kind of capacity that would come in the form of combat units. So she was not going to establish a team, a task team. She was merely going to reinforce what is on the ground, but via something different, which is a combat unit. That's what I was talking to you yesterday, saying we decided in the new structure that there should be a separate division of a number of combat units so that they could assist specialized units and uniform police on the ground.
Okay, I would like to then draw attention to page 372 of the same document overleaf. And at 2.5, it reads, in order for the SAPS to have a breakthrough and successful operations and convictions to combat mentioned crimes, a team consisting of 10 members led by Major General Zulu is formed, and then they are listed there. How different is the is what's set out at 2.5, except presumably for size? How different is that from a task team in the form of the PKTT?
Now, the principles are the same in a way. A problem has been identified in the Eastern Cape. Extra or reinforcement is required. It comes in that form. They go there, they do the work. It's specific and time bound, and at the end of that period, they then pull out. Now, in the same as PKTT was established, it was established for 6 months, deal with political killings, and then you are time bound after 6 months, and after time, once murder and robbery has been fully established, in case at the end it would be integrated. In a way, the principles are the same.
But this particular task team then is not impacted by the prohibition imposed by the Murray report. It is the same as the political killings task team. The same month that the political killings task team is dissolved, on the 31st of December, 2024, is the same month that you task the National Commissioner to establish, and as in your words you just said, an exactly identical task team for the purposes of this taxi violence and extortion matters in the Eastern Cape. And I'm not suggesting it should not have been established. I'm just trying to contrast and understand your reasoning. If your reasoning to task teams, and particularly the PKTT in December 2024 stands, I don't see how it can coexist with a thinking in the same month to do the direct opposite, which is establish another task team that is no longer afflicted by the challenges or Yes, the challenges of the PKTT. I'm trying to reconcile myself with your approach, and I'm trying to fit in the Murray report and the fact that it was binding, all of which would have been issues relevant to both the dissolution of the PKTT and the establishment of this task team that you called for. I don't know if you are able to assist.
No, I'm able to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. The National Political Killings Task Team gets established because there's a problem that has just cropped up in KZN and is identified and it gets established. Let's leave out for now by who and so on. Go there, you are established 6 months. And then after 6 months, 6 months, and so on. In the Eastern Cape, there's a particular problem that gets identified last year. You go and deal with this particular problem. You must have heard me saying, in a way. In both provinces, you have murder and robbery. But the murder and robbery, under whom there's a taxi unit in the Eastern Cape, is seen to be sort of overcome by the nature of the problem, practical, requiring reinforcement. And then these ones go there to do so. Otherwise, they are reinforcing. In the case of PKTT, they are not reinforcing KZN, murder and robbery. They are deemed to be, because they are not established in the same way as this one. They are now parallel to murder and robbery because they are there. This is now 7 years. And they are, in a way, I would say, the ones that the Murray report referred to, not this. I hope we're together. The Murray report finds a proliferation of sort of permanent task teams. And they say, don't have permanent task teams, don't have many of them. Reduce, integrate, make specialized units. Now, as an example, that specialized unit does exist in KZN. So they must do the work that the National Political Killings Task Team does in KZN. But in case there is something that requires reinforcement, you will then send. In this case, if there's something that overcomes murder and robbery in KZN, but overcomes also PKTT, you will then have to form or establish this to go and reinforce the two. That's why there's talk of double packing. PKTT on one hand, 7 years now, murder and robbery, which is now there. There is that difference.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner.
Yes. Minister, this information note, if you look at paragraph 2.4, it records the problem. Paragraph 2, in the information note, still at page 371, that you were looking at with Advocate
I
Silva
see.
now. Yes.
Thanks, I have it.
2.4, it reads, the Division Visible Policing and Operations currently does not have funds to run the operation. And then a decision was that an application should be submitted to move funds from another environment. But then turn to page 2.5 and see what in fact gets to be done. And then it says, in order for the SAPS to have a breakthrough and successful operations and convictions to combat mentioned crimes, a team consisting of 10 members led by Major General Zulu is formed. So there's a team formed. And then in 4.1.1, it says the team led by Major General Zulu be deployed to East London and Butterworth for the combating of taxi violence. And so there is a team which is being given the function to go and combat taxi violence, right? That includes murders. That's what I understand this to mean. That's the job of this team, is to go and combat taxi violence. I have a difficulty that from your evidence yesterday, you spoke about a false hierarchy. You said murder is murder. To create a task team that focuses on murder in a particular sector is a false hierarchy. Why is this not falling squarely into that which you define as a false hierarchy? These are matters that murder and robbery, not visible policing, murder and robbery should be investigating according to your approach to this, right? Murder and robbery should be dealing with these matters. You don't say to the National Commissioner, get murder and robbery to deal with these issues. You instead constitute a team to deal with them. What happened to your concern about a false hierarchy of some matters are more important than others that they require particular attention? Can you just reconcile
Yes.
that concern of yours with you constituting a team in December 2024?
Now, firstly, if I could be allowed just to extend your reading to 4.1, which says the deployment is from December the 9th, 2024 to February.
Yes, I accept that
Yes,
it's time
okay.
bound, yes.
That's number one. Number two, how do I reconcile? This is a team to go and work with or reinforce murder and robbery in Eastern Cape. But they are going there to reinforce. Why then, how do I reconcile that they are the hierarchy and so on? They are not there to deal with particular societal categorization in the form of what I would call like in the form of KZN, in which I'm saying in 2018 there was nothing wrong because they were targeted, if I could use that, councillors at local government level. And therefore it was a specific category. Here you are just going there to deal with violence in the same way that happened in KZN in 2018, but slightly different in nature. It's just violence, killing drivers, taxi owners, whoever in the Eastern Cape at that time. So go and reinforce murder and robbery, combat this problem between those months, and then you'll come back.
Why do you say this information note says go reinforce murder and robbery? I mean, I see in 2.4, it refers to visible policing and operations struggling. Is visible operations in murder and robbery?
Yes.
Is it in murder and robbery?
No, what's happening at the moment, or before the adoption of the new structure, is that visible policing is a branch, if I could call it that, and then Major General Zulu is under visible policing, and therefore they were saying visible policing doesn't have funds to do this.
Yes.
And therefore, if there is a team for that period, get it from outside. This is what it meant.
Yes, what I'm asking, Minister, sir, what I'm asking, you say to us that this team was constituted to go and reinforce murder and robbery. So they were not going to do their own, work as a standalone team in the way that the
Yes.
PKTT was doing. You distinguish them in that way.
Yes.
What I'm asking is what in this information note says they were going there to reinforce, not to be a standalone team, but
Yes.
to basically work with and within murder and robbery. What is it in this information note says that, tells us that?
Well, it may not necessarily be here, but it actually was there.
Okay,
It's,
so on a reading of this information note, on a reading of these 2 pages of the information note, there is nothing that says this new task team that you have tasked the National Commissioner in December 24 to form. There's nothing in this document that tells us they are not a standalone team. They are going there to reinforce and be part of the murder and robbery team in that area. There's nothing in this document that tells us that.
I would agree with
Okay.
you that in terms of drafting, it lacks
Thank you.
precision.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Commissioner Baloyi. Minister, perhaps I should take this moment to clarify that and I don't think anyone in this room is against the establishment of the task team, this particular task team in the Eastern Cape.
Ms. Sillo, may we take the adjournment now and resume at 11:15?
Thank you, Chair.
Let's adjourn.